Right, so the logic in update sol should be fairly familiar. If you are familiar with MasterChef, then it's pretty much the same stuff. We're just calculating your reward over the time that you're staked. So I'm not going to spend time here. You are either familiar with that or you're not, but it's prolific throughout DeFi. Here's an example of governance in practice. Only successful proposal is a modifier that you can slap onto a public function that can then only be executed by a successful proposal. So this is for the very important stuff, like this one, for instance. We're setting where Behodler is. We don't really want Flash governance to have a say on that. Governance approved is a modifier that allows either a proposal or Flash governance to execute. So for disabled protocol, we want to err on the side of speed, which means that we want to allow Flash governance to disable Behodler. And we can then deliberate later whether that was malicious or not. The Boolean is about whether it's an urgent type of Flash governance. So if we're changing the APY, it's obviously not urgent. But if it is urgent, if it's set to true, then it means that we can do this as many times as we want. If it isn't urgent, then there's a certain amount of these decisions you can make per epoch, and that's to prevent a Karen attack, of overwhelming the DAO with complaints. Now we've got adjust sol. So we've got two versions of calibrating a sol. The one is higher risk than the other, and so we want a low risk one that we can call often with Flash governance, because we want to be able to frequently adjust parameters such as the flan per second or the crossing bonuses and so on. So just as a reminder, these modifiers governance approved and only successful proposal we get from where is it? We get from the governable abstract class. So where were we? Adjust sol. Yeah, okay. Okay, so that does a bunch of stuff. As before, I showed you that you can enforce tolerances on the adjustments for Flash governance, which is ignored if it's a proposal. Configure sol is the higher risk version of changing a sol. There's more sensitive stuff that can be changed, and so for that reason, we're using a proposal. It's the only place where we have a special modifier called sol update proposal. So there's special security reasons for why we want to focus on this particular proposal. And that's discussed elsewhere. You'll find it in the comments and so on. The configure crossing parameters. Okay, so it's a lot of the same now, lots of config stuff. Okay, now we finally get to staking in Limbo. So you'll say your token, you'll say your amount, and then if the protocol is enabled, you'll be allowed to pass. Current sol, remember I said that a token can be listed multiple times on Behodler. So current sol will figure out which the latest version is, and then we want the sol to be in a staking state. We then perform a calculation update on the sol so that we get the latest rewards and so on. So this is often presented as a modifier in other code bases. I've chosen to just call it as a function. What else is of relevance? Not much, except that there's a chunk down here. Sorry for the pausing and starting, I'm trying to manage background noise. There's a chunk down here that determines if we've staked enough, if it's a threshold sol, have we crossed the threshold? If so, we need to change the state of the sol and give a timestamp for when the staking state ended, and then we can perform all of those calculations. The rest of the stuff, again, it's very MasterChef forked. And then unstake, very, very similar. It's the mirror image of that, except that there's a little bit of different logic over when you can and can't unstake. Claim reward is claiming your flan reward for staking, and it can happen on existing sols that are live, or on previous ones that are no longer live but for which you haven't claimed. So that's why you provide an index. And then on the UI we can then just figure out how to a lot of UIs, they say like past pools or whatever, will do something like that. Claim bonus. This is your crossover bonus. This will then, remember I said you've got your initial bonus per token, and then you've got your crossover bonus delta, and out of that you'll get a final flan per token. That will then be minted and paid to you as your bonus for having your tokens confiscated and sent to Behodler. Again, you can call this at any point after that's happened. You don't have to, there's no cutoff in time, and that's why you provide an index. And there's no way we can enforce a cutoff in time. So you never have to, we might make the UI obnoxious in terms of resisting your ability to claim old bonuses, but you can always drop down to the smart contract level. Claim secondary rewards. What is this for again? Oh yeah, okay. So sometimes tokens end up in Limbo that aren't supposed to be there, but they're there anyway, and we want to be able to claim these to withdraw them from Limbo. Otherwise, they float around, and we don't want them anymore. And so they're just lost to the system. So, like for instance, if we listed a pool together token, that pull together token might win something from wherever it comes from, and that something might not be a token listed on Limbo, but it might be that the Limbo stake of that pull together token wins, and then Limbo gets some reward and no one does anything with it. So claim secondary reward is just to like get at that. Migrate. It basically just calls that migration library that I mentioned. Approve unstake, that's for the upgrading feature that I mentioned. It just allows third parties to unstake for you. And then there's just a bunch of calculation functions at the bottom. So pretty straightforward, even if it's quite unwieldy. Flan Genesis is beyond the scope of this audit, so no points for thinking about it. Obviously you can see there's not much code in there, but the Flan Genesis is just an event that initializes Flan and gives it value, lists it on Behodler and so on. The Flan backstop, on the other hand, will be part of the audit. So if you're familiar with the Olympus DAO, the bonds where you send in an LP token and you get the OHM token with a premium, or they express it as a discount, but whatever.